Hi, hello again. I'm sorry the video was interrupted because of a bad connection, but I'm going to start again. And I was talking about Nur Jahan, the fabulous Mughal empress, what she might have been as a teenager. And I had shown the cover of my book, The Teenage Diary of Nur Jahan. And let me tell you, this book is always also available in as a Kindle edition because now we are having a problem buying books. So, The Teenage Diary of Nur Jahan, and this beautiful cover is by Debusmita Dasgupta. The book has been published by Talking Cub, an imprint of Speaking Tiger. And I was reading about the real Nur Jahan, not the imaginary teenager that I have created in this book. The real Nur Jahan in history. Nur Jahan was the 20th wife of Emperor Jahangir and the most powerful empress in Mughal history. She is considered to have been the de facto ruler during Jahangir's reign, managing the affairs of state with consummate skill. The fact that she had coins minted in her name and accompanied the emperor on his Jharoka Darshan or balcony viewing is proof enough of her status and the extent of her influence over Jahangir. Nur Jahan was not only efficient in administration but also a woman with a highly developed aesthetic sense. She was a talented poet and deeply interested in music and art. Architecture was another of her passions, and the impressive monuments she designed and constructed, along with beautiful gardens, pay tribute to the immense range of her abilities. Now, the story of her life is extraordinary too. Nur Jahan was born in Kandahar on 31st May 1577 and named Mehrun Nisa by her parents. Her father, Mirza Ghiaz Beg, and his wife, Asmat Begum, both hail from aristocratic Persian families. So, anyway, this is her background, and her father had to flee Iran, Persia as it was known at that time, and headed for Hindustan to look for a position in Akbar's court. Now, apart from the story, the dramatic story of her birth, which I'll come to in the course of my diary, not too much is known about her childhood and adolescence. And except for real historical events, which we can imagine, she must have been there in court because her father was a very important official in Akbar's court. So, I'm going to begin the diary at the time when she turns 13. Since it's a teenage diary, it's going to be continued from her 13th to her 18th year. And this is the time her father has been appointed as a Diwan or treasurer of Kabul, because that was also part of the Mughal domain, part of Afghanistan. And though it is not absolutely established historical fact, but some accounts mentioned that he was posted to Kabul. And I'm going to start with Mehrun Nisa, as she was known in Kabul. She turns 13 and she's not very happy being away from the excitement of the Mughal court because she spent a lot of time with the Padshah Begum, the head empress of Akbar, and she was her favorite as well, it is said. So now Kabul seems like, not as exciting, and it's a sort of distant outpost. But anyway, she's a very positive person and she takes it all in her stride. So this is the 34th year of the reign of His Majesty Padshah Abul Fath Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, and it is June 1590. Okay. So this is a diary entry. Here goes. It had taken me some time to feel as comfortable in this house as we were in my father's mansions in Agra and Fatehpur Sikri. But Kabul's natural beauty, the breathtaking sight of the snow-capped mountains with the Kabul river's crystal clear waters flowing through the city, won my heart. I longed to go for a picnic to one of the enchanting gardens I had heard so much about, some built by Mughal princesses. But my mother couldn't relax till all our furniture and other belongings had been unpacked and the kitchen properly equipped. Like all ladies of the house, her mother was eager to be properly settled. She bustled around, seeing that the expensive carpets were unrolled and the cold stone floors acquired the warmth of their colors. The paintings had to be hung on the walls, and the porcelain and silver knickknacks arranged for effect. She even draped a couple of the embroidered pulkari sheets we had brought from Lahore. Visitors needed to be aware that they were not entering an ordinary man's house. It was the home of Mirza Ghias Beg, a Persian noble and the minister of the treasurer of Kabul, appointed by none less than the most powerful man in the world as we know it, the Mughal emperor Akbar Shah. This place abounds in a variety of delicious fruits like the most honeyed melons and grapes, luscious figs, apricots, peaches and pears. I have heard about peaches as large as an owl's head and other fantastic fruit. When a basket of dark red pomegranates arrived today, Dilbag smiled and said, "Hazur, pomegranates from Kandahar, how fresh and juicy they are." Dilbag is their personal maid and she's going to crop up several times in the course of the diary. Ammi smiled. "Tell the kitchen maid to shell them immediately." "Kandahar," I cried. "Isn't that the place of my birth?" Ammi became pensive. "Yes, Jan," she said, "it is." "Maybe we can visit it someday while we are here, Ammi." The thought of visiting my birthplace made me jump up and down with joy. "My dear, Kandahar is occupied by the Persian Shah," Ammi said quietly. "It is hostile territory for us." Oh, it was disappointing to hear that. Late in the afternoon, as we lounged in the Zanana Baitak, savoring the sweetness of pomegranate seeds, I couldn't help thinking of my birthplace again. A question flashed into my mind. Why did we leave Persia, Ammi? The two of us were alone by chance. The boys had gone out riding and my little sisters were busy with their dolls. Ammi hesitated for a moment. Then she sighed heavily and said, "Perhaps it is time to share this story with you, painful as it is. You're almost a woman. You need to know how one's fortunes can change in a split second. That this prosperity we take for granted is not necessarily permanent." I turned cold. For a moment I felt sorry I had asked, but my insatiable curiosity will never give me peace. And the remarks the ladies at the court let drop sometimes, not always kind, had sharpened it. I had heard remarks such as, "The Persian adventurer has really advanced by leaps and bounds." Sometimes, when Baba was distributing food to the poor, he would say, "Meher, Allah has blessed us with so much. We must remember to share His gifts with those less fortunate." The undercurrent in his voice made me uneasy. Doing charity was a religious duty, but there was an intensity in Baba and Ammi when they performed these acts that made it different from the routine manner in which most of the courtiers gave alms. Your grandfather, Muhammad Sharif, was in favor with Shah Tahmasp Safi of Persia, my mother began in an expressionless tone. He was the Wazir of Isfahan when he passed away, just a year before you were born. When the Shah too died, his successor, Shah Ismat II, turned against us. We had to flee Tehran for our lives at dead of night. Your father decided to seek his fortune in India and we joined a caravan. But to my dismay, she brushed at her eye. We were waylaid by robbers and lost everything. Our gold and silver, jewels, even our horses. My blood seemed to freeze in my veins. This was far worse than I could have imagined. I almost reached out to place a hand on my mother's mouth and cry out, "Stop, stop, Ammi!" But I dug my teeth into my lower lip. However horrifying, this was a story I needed to know. We managed to get hold of 2 mules, which we rode in turns. Your brothers and sisters were very young, and I was in the last stage of my pregnancy. We almost begged our way to Kandahar. Ammi tried to smile through her tears. My heart was thudding painfully. Some nomads gave us shelter, and when my labor pains began, an old midwife helped to deliver you. Ammi's eyes spilled over when she said, "I thought you were the most beautiful baby ever born." I choked on my own tears and nestled closer to my mother, inhaling the scent of her favorite itr. The pomegranate seeds glowed in the silver bowl like rubies. An unrelated thought went through my mind. Prince Salim loved rubies, I had heard. Now, Prince Salim is Emperor Jahangir, when he was just a prince. Ammi squeezed me tight. "Mehru, Jan, don't hate us for what I'm going to tell you next." "Can I ever hate you?" I was shrill in my protest. "May Allah strike me dead if I ever do." "Listen," my mother hissed fiercely. I was terrified. I had never heard my gentle mother speak in such a tone. I clutched a cushion for support. She went on without looking at me. "The most beautiful baby, but we had little food to eat, so I had no milk to feed you. You began to waste away before our eyes. Our fortunes had improved somewhat by then, as we had joined the caravan of the gracious Malik Masood. But still, we hardly had any money for food. Rather than watch you starve slowly, we decided to abandon you, hoping that someone better off might find you and take care of you." Ammi's voice broke at this point. "And take care of you." I should have screamed or burst into a paroxysm of weeping, but it suddenly felt as if someone had placed a large rock on my heart, crushing all emotion. "Go on, Ammi," I said calmly. "What happened next?" Ammi's eyes opened wide. She stared at me as though I was a stranger. Then she drew a deep breath. "Your father left you under a tree, praying that someone might find you soon. And his prayers were answered. Malik Masood himself found you. He charged us to take care of you and gave your father money for your upkeep. Allah restored you to us, my child. You were lucky for us, extremely lucky." This story walloped me with its weight. I tried to embrace Ammi, hold her close as she wept, but I was in a daze, rather in a kind of trance. Only when my little sisters ran into the room along with our brother Shapur, clamoring for some pomegranate, did my trance break. So you can imagine what a shock it must have been for Nur Jahan Mehrun Nissa Radha, as she was at that time, to discover that her parents had been so badly off that they had to abandon her, and it was just by luck that the leader of the caravan, Malik Masood, who became a kind of patron of her father, Mirza Ghiyas Ali Beg, and there's another interesting legend connected with this. It is said that when Nur Jahan, as a baby, was lying there under the tree, a cobra came and spread its hood over her. Now, these are stories that are supposed to indicate that a person is very lucky, that if a cobra had to spread its hood over you. And Malik Masood came and saw that, and he felt that this is a very special baby, and he picked it up at once. And Nur Jahan, well, if you see pictures of her, the portraits that have been painted, the miniatures, she was a very beautiful woman, and she was a very pretty child. She's supposed to have grey blue eyes, and she soon recovered because Malik Masood gave her parents money to take care of her. And somebody's asked me a question. I'm sorry to interrupt. Somebody's asked me, usually the male kids develop admiration for male icons and female kids develop admiration for female icons. Do you think parents can use historical figures like Nur Jahan to break some of that gender divide? Maybe these tales can in gender fluid parenting? Yes, thanks Shani Gupta for this very interesting question. Absolutely. Because Nur Jahan was an extraordinary woman. As I mentioned earlier, later she would go on to wield power, and she was actually the de facto ruler of the empire during Jahangir's reign. And the British travelers who came and other European travelers have left all kinds of accounts, and I mean, sometimes they were rather miffed that a woman should control everything, but she was an extremely intelligent woman, and she administered the country very efficiently. So yes, definitely I feel that historical figures, and if you think about it, at the time she lived in Parda, but still she went out for the Jharoka Darshan every day, the balcony viewing, when the emperor, presented himself to greet his subjects. She accompanied him, though she was entirely in Parda. But he brought her there, which no other Mughal empress ever had the opportunity to do. I mean, we know that Shah Jahan was so devoted to his wife Mumtaz Mahal, who was incidentally Nur Jahan's niece. She was the daughter of her brother Abul Hussain. So, but in terms of wielding power, there has never been a Mughal empress like Nur Jahan. So to show such figures, introduce children to such figures, you would definitely create gender fluidity. Well, yes, as Jayashri is asking me, how can children utilize this time to learn about poetry and literature? Well, talks like this is our aim, that children can make good use of their time and discover more about poetry and literature, not just by reading, but by talks, telling them more about the books they could read and the discoveries that they could make from books, because reading is not just about gaining knowledge, but also having fun, entertainment. And I have tried in this diary, because the medium of a book written in the form of a diary makes everything very immediate. You feel you're there over listening to a person's thoughts. That's the feeling. So I had a lot of fun writing this book, because I thought of her, this very strong, ambitious woman, what she must have been like a teenager. And it was fascinating for me. And I have created incidents when she acts very assertive. Her eldest brother and she, Muhammad Sharif, and she don't get along very well, though she gets along very well with Abul Hassan, the second brother. And she's fond of riding. Uh, it is recorded that she was a very good, markswoman. She was accomplished at shooting a bow and arrow, and there's even an incident when she actually shot a man, an interloper, in the palace with an arrow. So all these things go to show that she had these qualities. She was brave, and apart from that, her deep interest in the arts, all kinds of arts. She was very fond of embroidery, and this is what I have brought in the book too, that she's always creating designs for embroidery. And I don't know if you can see the chicken kurta that I'm wearing. I really wore it today because it is said that she invented chicken curry. And even this Badla or Mukesh embroidery, she developed all kinds of embroidery, and she was very fond of embroidering herself. She designed dresses, and in fact, after her, because before she married Jahangir, she was married to Sher Afghan, and when her husband died, that is how she supported herself, by designing dresses for the ladies in court. But anyway, let us jump ahead a bit. So I'd like to read a little more from the book. And the family is there in Kabul. I've created an imaginary friend. There are other events in the family. Her older sibling is getting married, and then also trying to recreate the local weather, the local customs, the celebrations of festivals. And also, since she's a teenager, I've mentioned about her, her first time she has her periods, because I think this is all part of growing up. And then her father is summoned back to the court. And she's very excited because she really enjoys the life of the Mughal court. And then, events begin to overtake her. But I also wanted to share something about the life in the Mughal court to get an idea of what life was at that time. So I'm just reading a bit about the Dashera celebrations. The Dashera celebrations are more than memorable. Our Padshah celebrated the festival with much fanfare, along with the gracious Maryam Uz-Zamani, his Rajput Begum, Salim's mother. Jodhabai, she had the title Maryam Uz-Zamani. The elephants in the imperial stables, and there is an enormous number of them, were decorated and led out for the emperor to review. What a magnificent sight it was! The noble beasts with colourful patterns drawn on their heads, brocaded howdahs on their backs, saluting their master by raising their trunks respectfully, offering him garlands of fragrant flowers. The emperor flung down golden coins for the mahouts and the watching public. Later, there was a brilliant display of fireworks. The festival of Diwali will be celebrated with no less fanfare. Okay, so this is back to the opulent, the splendid life of court, and then something happens. She's nurturing ambitions because Prince Salim has, she has noticed her, has noticed this pretty young girl, and expressed some interest in her. But then something happens which makes her life take a different turn. So now this is the 30th year of the reign of His Majesty Padshah Abul Fath Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, Lahore, 1594. It's been several days since I've been walking around like a living corpse. The monsoon sky has come crashing down on my head, and I'm struggling to fight my way out of the rubble. And here's a little poem. She was, an accomplished poet as well, though of course it's not one of her poems. It's just a poem I made up to keep the diary in character. My grief is so great that it has settled in my heart like a mountain of ice. Will the clouds ever part and let the sun's rays through to melt it, O Makhfi? Today, even a poem brings no relief, no balm for my pain. Only the bitter brine of tears stings my lacerated heart. Now, Makhfi was a pseudonym used by Mughal women because they lived in Parda, so their real names were never added to their poetry. And similarly, Nur Jahan never put in her name. And incidentally, her name was Mehrun Nisa, as I mentioned. Nur Jahan was the name given to her by Jahangir when he made her the empress. To whom am I to confide my sorrow but you, my dear Rose Namcha? I have unearthed you from the depths of my chest, but truly I feel as if I am the one who has been buried alive. To imagine that was the Padshah Begum, the person I have revered so much, indeed loved, who brought my world crashing down on my head. Ammi is not happy either, but who can go against the emperor's wishes? Worse, I have to continue in my duties to the empress and pretend all is well. Like a puppet, I nod and try to answer in a normal tone. She's too shrewd not to be aware of my unhappiness. What's the matter, Mehrunissa? She said sharply yesterday. A young girl like you should be jumping around with joy. As it is, you're getting quite overage for marriage. I tried to smile. I'm very happy, Your Majesty, and very grateful that you chose a husband for me. Hurriedly I added that my father may not have mentioned it, but who else but the Empress could have recommended me as a bride for Ali Kuli Istajlu? The very name is bitter in my mouth. It is just that it was so sudden. I was quite content serving you. The Empress laughed. Her attendants chimed in dutifully. Sometimes I think we are like echoes, mimicking the Padshah Begum's words. We cannot use our own voices. She pinched my cheek so hard that it hurt. My pretty one, you will have plenty of opportunity to serve me when your husband is away fighting the emperor's battles. A common soldier. If Prince Salim was not meant for me, at least she could have found a courtier, an educated man who could appreciate poetry and music. What value will my education hold for this man whose only recommendation is that he had distinguished himself in battle? It is the Khani Khana Abdur Rahim who holds this man in high esteem. Ali Kuli, who fled from Persia like us, is said to have fought so well that he contributed to the conquest of Thatta in Sindh. Thus, he won the Khani Khana's favor, who presented him to the emperor. The brave soldier was rewarded with a mansabdari of 300 soldiers and a bride, me. He's a Persian, like us, Baba had said, trying hard to make him sound desirable. Ammi's mouth was set in a thin line. She too knew that he was not the right person for me. But what choice did we have against the emperor's wish? So I'm going to stop here and to find out what happens with Mehrunissa after she marries Ali Kuli Ustajlu, who had been given the name Sher Afghan because he killed a tiger and actually saved Jahangir's life as a prince. So to find out about her life as after marriage, please do read the diary, and I hope you enjoyed watching. So stay home, stay safe, read lots of books, and I think all the sessions that are going on about literature and poetry are definitely going to add to the children's enjoyment and also the increase their fund of information and knowledge. So take care, everybody, and many thanks to Express Parenting again for uh, featuring me in this wonderful series of talks on books. Okay, goodbye now.